So here I'll just send another message to John. I'll just say, hi John. And if I just sent that, now message is not seen initially. But when the John clicks to this conversation, it is just going to be immediately to this seen, which is this blue check mark. Hey guys, and welcome back. So do you know how WhatsApp implements this feature called seen and unseen messages? Well, to be honest, I don't know either, but it shouldn't be really hard to imagine and come up with a solution that simulates the exact same behavior. So here I am about to show you the solution that I come up with, and first I will just explain the theory and then we will get into the coding. So here I have my messages collection, and what I did was to just add this seen field, and by default it is just going to be false for each message, because I don't know when this message is going to be seen. And then I have prepared one example here. Let me just zoom out a little bit. So here we have two users, which is John and Jane. So they are chatting with each other. This is the view of John and this is the view of Jane. So since this is a real-time chat messaging app, we are using a socket server, and thus we need some events. And in our case, we are only gonna need two events, and let me explain. So here, once John sees these latest messages, which is coming from Jane, he is just going to send an event to our server that says mark messages as seen. Now server will take this message, and in the background it is going to update these two messages to be seen. So it's just going to take this seen field and it is convert that from false to true. Okay, we'll just put a T for that. And then the server will immediately send a event back to the Jane that says, hey Jane, your message is now seen by John. Now we could just put a check mark so that you can make sure that your message has been seen. And believe it or not, this is the whole theory that we need to know. We need to add this seen field into our messages collection. By default, it should be false. And then when a user sees the messages, it is going to send an event called mark messages as seen. Server will take this event, and in the background, it'll just update these two latest messages to be seen. And then it'll immediately send this event back called messages seen to notify this user that their messages seen. So with these in mind, now let's get into the coding. So this is the chat application that we have built in this channel, which is going to be that previous video. If you want to check that out, the link will be in the description below. And we're going to add this feature on top of this chat application. So first things first, let's first remove all of these warnings, and then we're going to get into the application. So here it says that you're never using this set selected conversation function. So we can just delete that, and then we're going to remove this and change it like this. So we'll say use recoil value, and we can remove this import from here. So that was the first warning. And now here, let's add our dependencies. Is going to be the selected conversation, as well as, let's take a look, it says set conversations. So set conversations. Okay, we get rid of this warning as well. And then at the bottom, let's remove that one again. So it was going to be selected conversation.mock. Okay, so the first thing that we would like to do is to add that seen field into our message model. So here I'll just say seen, and the type is gonna be boolean, and the default value we said that is gonna be false. Now we could save this file and close it because we're never gonna use this again. And there is one thing that I want to change in this message.jsx. So first let's send a message to, let's say, Elon, and now we don't have any conversations or any messages because I wiped out the database. So here I'll just say hi and then send it. Now we don't have any that check mark that indicates if this message has been seen or not. So here, in order to fix this, I will just delete this part and then paste this maybe 5 or 6 lines. So we're going to import this box from Chakra, as well as this icon from React Icons. So I'll just say import this icon from React Icons-BS. So what we did here was to just have a flex of background green of 800, and then it has a text on the left and a box on the right, and that box has this check mark. So if the message is seen, the color is going to be this blue 400, otherwise it's just going to be that default white color. So we could save and let's take a look. Now the background has changed and we have this check mark. So now it is time to send this event that we called mark messages as seen. So if the message is coming from the other user, and when I see that, I'll just send that event. So let's go inside message container, and this is the component that this one that we have on the right. So this is going to be where we will see the messages. So here, let's shrink all of our use effects so that they are not distracting. And then we're going to just put this after the second use effect. So it's going to be here. So let me just initialize that. Now inside this use effect, we'll just say if the last message is from other user. If this is the case, we're gonna just do something inside this if block, and let's get this const like this, and we'll just say that if messages and the last message, so messages dot length -1, this is gonna give us the latest message dot sender that has the ID. If this is not equal to the current user underscore ID, if this is not the case, then this is going to be true. So we could prevent any bugs by saying this messages dot length. So if this is not an empty array, then just run this right hand side. So if this is true, we will get into this if check and we'll just send that event. So socket.emit mark messages. So it should be like this, mark messages as seen. If I can type correctly, and then here we can pass another object, and we're gonna need this as arguments. So we'll say conversation ID, which is gonna be this selected conversation underscore ID. And also we need to send the user ID of the user that we are chatting with. So we'll just say selected conversation dot dot user ID. Now that we send this event, now let's listen for that in our server. So we're gonna go socket.js, and then here we're gonna listen for that event. So we will just say that socket.on for all of the incoming mark messages as seen event, and this is gonna have a callback. Let's make it async because we're gonna use try catch, and let's get the conversation ID that we are passing and then the user ID that we're chatting with. So here we could have a try catch, and in the catch case you could handle the error, but I'll just say console.log the error, and in the try we're gonna update our database. So let's get the message model. So I'll just say import not the second, so import message. It's gonna be from our models, so I'll just go one up. It should be models, and then the message model.js file. So we got the message model, and then we'll just say await message, if I can type correctly, message.update many function we're gonna call. In here we will just find all of the messages that in this conversation that is seen is false. When that is the false, we will just convert it to true because we're sending this event that indicates now the user has seen these messages. So this is going to take an object that says find all of the messages that has this conversation ID where the seen field is false, and then second argument is going to be this setter function. So to say, it's going to take another object and it'll just have this seen field to be true. Now basically we're just updating our database with this field to be true, and then we will send this event to the other user that is going to be io.to, and this is going to take the socket ID, which we can get it by this user ID that we have sent it. So user socket map has the user ID, and in turn it's going to give us this socket ID that we're storing. So after this we will just call the emit, I believe, and then we'll just say that messages seen event. and that should be, let's say, 2s, so that we don't have any typos. And we're gonna send the conversation ID that we just we were just updating. So we could save this file, and since we are sending this event, now let's listen for that in our client. So after this if check, we'll just say socket.on messages seen event, and this is gonna take a callback, and that callback was taken an argument, which is gonna be this conversation ID. So inside this function, we're gonna do one if check that says if selected conversation dot underscore ID, right? If this is equal to this conversation ID, then we're gonna update our state and it's gonna update our user interface. So let me just scroll down a little bit to give ourselves a little bit of space. So we'll say set messages and we're gonna get the previous state. Then this is gonna be an arrow function. It's gonna say const updated messages. So it's gonna be new state, and we can just take the previous and map it for each message. So let's get it like this. And if message is not seen, so we'll say message is seen as false, we are just gonna return an object that just spreads the message, and also it converts the seen field to true. And so let me just type that out. So after this if check, if this is not the case, we'll just return the message as it was before. And then at the end, we'll just say return this updated messages. So that should handle it for us. So let's put this dependency array. So it's gonna take the socket, and then we're using the current user dot underscore ID. And what are we using else? So we're using messages, and then also we're using the selected conversation. So that should be fine, and now let's test it out. So I'll just save this file. So here I've just put them side by side. We are logged in as John on the left, and now on the right I'll just log in as Elon. So this is the password, and now let's log in. So now Elon is online, and let's go to chat page for him. And then here we have that message. Now when I click to that, now that message is seen. Do you see that? Because our use effect runs, and then it sends that. So let me just walk you through. So this use effect run, and the last message was from other user. And if this is the case, we're sending an event to our server that says mark messages as seen, and this is the conversation. This is the user that we're chatting with. So we're getting all of that information, and we're updating that messages to be true, which means that now they are seen. And then we are sending this event back to the other user that says now your message is seen, and this user get that event, and it sees that now this is the selected conversation that is coming from the event, and it just update the state so that it has that blue check mark. Now there is still one problem, and before that, let's just test this out again. So here, let's say, hey dude, and send the message. Now immediately it is seen. If we refresh it here, now I'll just send another message. So let's say another message. Now it is not seen, right? It has this white color. But when I click to that, now it is seen. So it's working perfectly fine. The only problem that we have is that now this is updated, but here this is not been updated, right? That should also have that blue color. Now it is not working because this is a different collection that we're holding in our database. Now in order to fix that, we can go inside the VS Code, and inside our models, I believe, yeah, it's going to be inside the conversation model, and we're just going to take this scene field, copy that, and for the last message, we have the text as well as the sender. Now we also want to have this scene field inside this conversation model. So for each conversation, the last message is going to be not seen initially. So we're going to save this file. Now inside the socket.js, when the user mark messages as seen, we're not only going to update the message model, but we're also going to update that conversations. So we'll say await conversation that is coming from this file that we imported. In here, we'll just say conversation, but here we'll just use the update one method. So we'll say update one, and it is gonna take this first argument as underscore ID is equal to this conversation ID. And then for the second argument, it'll just take this set field, and then it's going to be this last message dot seen. Now this is not correct as the key, so we'll just convert it to a string, and then here we'll just make that to be true. So that's it. Let's just save this, and here we're updating the message, and then we're updating this conversation, and then finally we are just sending this with this event and indicating the conversation ID. So we could save this, and then inside the chat page, let's open that up. We're gonna listen for the messages seen event. We're using the chat page. It is because here the chat page displays this conversations as well as this message container. So it is the parent for this conversations component. For that, we can use this chat page. Okay, we're gonna just shrink this use effect so that it doesn't distract us. So I'll just initialize another one. So inside here, we're gonna use this socket. So let's say socket.on, and here we could just check if this socket is available, and we'll just say messages seen event. Once we get that, we're gonna get this handler function, which gives us the conversation ID. So let's say conversation ID, and then we're gonna get into here. We're going to say that set conversations, and we're going to get the previous state, and this is kind of similar what we did in the message container component. So we're going to get the previous state in here. We'll say const updated conversations. This is going to be the new state. Once we update that, we'll take the previous dot map, and for each conversation, this is going to be an arrow function, and then here we'll just say if the conversation dot underscore ID is equal to this conversation ID that is coming from as an argument. And then if this is the case, we'll just return a new object by spreading this conversation, and then we'll just make that last message field. Okay, we'll just say spread this conversation dot last message. So basically what we're doing is that we're not changing any field other than this seen field to be true. So this looks a little bit strange, but this is what we do in JavaScript. So here we're gonna go two curly braces down, and then we'll just return the message if this is not the case. I mean the conversation, not the message. And then after here, okay, that should be here, and then we're gonna go and we'll just say return updated conversations, which is going to update our state. As for the dependence array, we will just put the socket as well as the set conversations method. Now we can save this, but we didn't update the UI in our conversation component. So let's find it. It's gonna be here, and we're just showing this check mark icon, but we need to have that a color if the message is seen. Now we cannot just come here and say that color is gonna be blue 400 because it only works for chakra components, and this is a React icon component. So I will just cut this for a second and open up this brackets, and I'll have a box and just paste that. Now here we're gonna check for that color. So let's import the box, and we'll just say color is gonna be if the, so let's check how are we gonna get that. So we're already having this last message. So let's scroll down here. We'll say last message dot I believe it was seen. If this is the case, the color is gonna be blue 400, and otherwise it is not gonna have any colors. So hopefully this is gonna work. I'll just save and let's test this out. So I'll just open up here, and it's already updated, but let's refresh and try that again. So I will open up both the conversations, and I'll just say hey John, and send the message. Now the message is seen immediately, and we have that blue check mark here as well. So let's refresh here so that we have that not seen state initially. So let's say, hey dude, did you see my message? And if we just sent that, now he didn't see it, right? It is not here. But when we click to that, Now the message has been seen and we got this blue check mark both here and then here. So that was my solution with the implementation details. I think it's pretty basic and cool at the same time. And if you just like this content, please like and subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next time.